when I was a kid. I think I was 9 or 10 years old, and I was working for my neighbor, the farmer, and we had to bale hay. And I ran the crew. I got other kids to come help, and
Mm-hmm.
we were running the tractor through the field and getting the last bales, and it was after dark. Or no, it was. I take that back. It was during the day, and a doe and a fawn came across the road, and the doe got clipped by a car, and they kept going,
Mm.
and the doe kept running, ran off, and the fawn was trying to keep up with it and stopped in the middle of the hayfield and just sat there. And when it got dark and we were done with the hay, we kept watching this thing the whole time, and we'd leave for a long time, come back, and it was still there. And after dark, like it was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, um, me and the farmer went over with his Jeep, and we spotlighted it, and the fawn was still there with no doe anywhere. And you could see through the fields for like a mile. And the
Yeah.
doe was nowhere in sight. We don't know if it was dead from the car or whatever. And it was surrounded by coyotes. And he says, "Oh, we can't leave this thing here. We got to do something." And he had a little kid in his house and a dog. And he's like, "Can you just take that over to your house, and in the morning we'll call the DNR?" I said, "Sure." So I went over and got it, and I carried it across the road, and somebody had seen me, like in a car, or I have no idea, but somebody had seen me. So I go to the house, and in the morning we're supposed to call the DNR. The farmer said he was going to. So I wake up, like 9 o'clock in the morning or something. It's daylight. Somebody pounding on the door, and my mom says, "Hey, there's a game warden here." So I'm like, "Oh yeah, the farmer probably called him to get the fawn." So I go to the
Yeah.
door. I'm like, "You here for the fawn?" He goes, "Yeah." So I give him the fawn. And he's like, "Well, you're going to be cited for animal harassment." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you just went over, and you can't have a fawn for a pet." I'm like, "It's not a pet." I said, "Didn't the farmer call you?" He goes, "Nobody called." He says, "I had a complaint that you took this thing, you know, somebody saw you carry it across the road." And I'm like, "Well, you need to talk to the farmer because this is what happened." And I told him the story. And he said, "If the farmer's story matches yours," he says, "I'm going to go over there right now." He says, "You won't get a ticket. If it doesn't, you're getting a ticket." And he leaves. So later that day, I stopped by the farm and I talked to the farmer, and he says he was home all day, and that guy, the warden, never came over. So like a week goes by, and I get a fine in the mail for $200,
Mm.
which, if you're talking back in the '70s, that's a lot of money, especially
Yeah.
for a
Right.
kid. That'd be the equivalent of like maybe $750 now. I mean, um,
Yeah.
so
Right.
the farmer says, "Well, screw that. We're taking this to court." He goes, "I'll go with you." So we went to court, and um, the judge calls us up there, and he asked the warden, and they had like a lawyer guy. I don't know if it's somebody from the DNR or it's an actual lawyer, but they had a guy representing the warden, and they said their case, and then they asked for what happened out of me, and I started explaining it. And remember, I'm like 9 or 10 years old, and I said,
Right.
"Well, this is what happened." I told him the story, and then the farmer would butt in and tell his side of the story, and then I said, and he said that he would, and the guy just starts screaming at me right in the courtroom, "You don't point a finger at me!" And I'm like, telling a story, I have to point out the person, he's just screaming at me.
Yeah.
And the judge says, "Calm down here. You guys take your case out in the hallway, come to a reasonable conclusion, and come back and see me." So we go out in the hallway, and he goes, "Here's the deal. You pay your fine, and that's it. I'm not giving you any breaks. You can't just take fawns out of the wild." So we go back in there, and the judge says, "Well, did you guys come to a conclusion?" I said, "He said he won't budge an inch. That's what he wants." And the judge says, "Well, I kind of commend you for trying to help the wildlife and stuff." He goes, "Yeah, it's against the law." He says, "But I don't know that I'd have done anything different." And he says,
Yeah.
"I'm glad you brought the farmer, because otherwise I might not believe your story." And I gave him the phone numbers of all the kids that were there working too when this went on too. And
Yeah.
I apparently had called some of them. And the judge said, "Unfortunately, I don't know why this guy has such a chip on his shoulder." He says, "But unfortunately, the law is the law. And if he wants to press the issue, I have to press the issue. You broke the law. You can't harass the animals. I guess you have to let the coyotes eat it." He goes, they got to eat too, I guess. And he goes, but I'd have probably done the same thing, fine or not. And he said, but even though I have to find you guilty, it's up to me to decide the fine. He goes, no, the lowest I can make it is $5. And he says, and that's what I'm charging you, $5.
Oh, nice.
And the farmer said, I'll pay that.
Yeah.
If you want to watch another video, click right here. But don't forget to subscribe before you leave.